Half the time he would be wide awake, staring frog-eyed at the ceiling, his hand resting absently on his genitals. In this position, in order to avoid thinking of the future, he would think of the past. He would rehearse the proudest episodes of his life and compare them with his present state of stifled inertia. His graduation, his 6-month tour of Italy and the Greek islands, the flush of intellectual excitement in which he had completed his MA thesis, his first sexual conquest, his second sexual conquest, his last sexual conquest, the publication of his note on line 25 of Little Gidding in a 1976 issue of Notes and Queries, the second graduation ceremony at which he had been awarded his doctorate. But always at the front of his mind there festered the knowledge that these events had taken place a long time ago. They had all occurred within a period of 8 years, and since then nearly the same period had elapsed, and in all that time nothing had happened. Not a solitary highlight. This meant, amongst other things, that Hugh had developed a very confused sense of the passage of time. He was aware that 8 years had passed since he had received his final degree, but because there were no landmarks to punctuate these years, he could no longer distinguish them from one another, or achieve any grasp of their cumulative span. That day of triumph in Coventry Cathedral seemed neither recent nor distant. It seemed, if anything, to belong to a quite different level of existence. His life now comprised other realities, the hiss of the gas fire, and the heavy warmth of his bedroom, the texture of pubic hair as he twined it around his index finger, the smell, to which he had long since become immune, of the unwashed socks and underpants stashed under the bed, and the daily routine of forcing himself, at about 2:30, out of his bed, out of the flat, onto a bus, and onto the university campus, in search of a kind of companionship. 3 o'clock found him walking through the rain to the bus station at Poole Meadow. There was an icy wind, and in the distance, from the precinct, he could hear Christmas carols being played over a tannoy system. This reminded him that soon he would have to go back and visit his family, choose cards and presents, and he scowled. They would ask him the usual questions. When are you going to get yourself a job? Are you seeing anyone at the moment? And he would have to suffer the subtle taunts of his younger brother who sold bathroom fittings for a company based in Aberdeen and made more money in a month than Hugh had ever earned in his life. But there would be decent meals, and when it all got too much, he could go up to his bedroom and smoke. Before anything else, he would have to phone his parents and get them to send down the money for the rail fare home. He was one of 3 passengers on the bus, and he had the top deck to himself for the whole journey. At various stops, he looked out for familiar faces, friends, lecturers, students who might have been staying up for part of the vacation, but none appeared. Perhaps the weather was keeping them indoors. Similarly, there were no other customers in the coffee bar. Friday afternoons out of term were always quiet, but today there seemed to be a level of inactivity which unsettled even Hugh, accustomed as he was to the atmosphere of empty cafes and deserted bars. Sometimes he chatted to the woman who served behind the counter, but he could tell that she wasn't in the mood this time. She was reading a magazine, and anyway, he couldn't think of anything to say. So he sat and made his cup of hot chocolate last for nearly half an hour, until another customer finally appeared. It was Dr. Corbett, the English department's recently appointed senior lecturer. Being, like most of the staff, on cordial terms with Hugh, he came over and joined him. He had a beard and a leather jacket, and had bought himself some coffee and a piece of chocolate cake. They exchanged murmured greetings, after which Corbett began eating his cake, and Hugh was able to come up with nothing more original than, "Quiet today, isn't it?" "Well, it's getting on for Christmas," said the highly acclaimed author of the intelligent heart, thought and feeling in the 18th century novel. Been working on something today, have you? Hugh asked. A new book or something? Examiners' meeting, said Corbett, with his mouth full.